Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Bass Tales. Today we're going to talk about the oldest yet maybe the best fishing lure of all time. It's one of the simplest designs, but it's so effective. You can catch game fish in freshwater or saltwater. It can be used year-round, even ice fishing. It has caught over 211 record fish, only number 2 to the jig. What lure are we talking about today? It is the spoon. A lot of people just think the spoon's good for catching trout, but this lure will work on every type of fishing species, from fresh to saltwater. The spoon will work on bass, trout, pike, panfish, striped bass, bluefish, walleye, muskie. Basically, the list goes on and on. I could name every game fish there is, but this lure will catch any fish that you want to catch. Just match the size to the type of fish you're going after. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit of how the spoon came to be, being the first lure. Basically, it got its start in 3000 BC. The ancient Romans used polished clamshells with metal or stone hooks to catch fish. Nordic people had been making spoon lures from the 8th century, made from iron, bronze, and copper. Then modern spoons started to appear, and they originated in Scandinavia in the late 1700s. But who I'm going to talk about most today is Julio Thomson Buell. He basically came up with the modern commercialized spoon. As a young kid, Buell grew up in Vermont. He used to go down to the river. He loved being outdoors, loved fishing. And as a little kid, he used to toss small white pebbles in the water of a brook and watch trout rise up for them. But where Buell got the real idea for the spoon lure wasn't from just throwing those pebbles in a brook, but when he was eating lunch out on his boat in 1824 on Bomoseen Lake in Vermont. He dropped his teaspoon overboard and he watched the twists and the turns it made in the falling water. This gave him an idea, so he rushed home, soldered a hook to an old brass spoon, sawed off the handle, and drilled out a hole for the line. He took it to the lake and started catching fish. He was amazed how well it worked. He created the spoon lure out of a spoon. So now you see where the name came from. Being a perfectionist, he wasn't satisfied. He wanted the best lure as possible. He designed his own treble hooks because hooks were very expensive at the time. Swivels were too weak and soft, so he made his own out of extra hard wire. He used high quality fly feathers to tie to his hooks. He used rolled plate and even burnished instead of polished for durability. He spent several years to get the lure perfected. In 1834, he applied and received the first patent for a trolling bait. He moved to Lake George, New York, where he caught his first fish deep trolling. He made long trips into the Adirondack Mountains so he could test new designs on all the local game fish. The result of all this working and testing was that he became a manufacturer of trolling baits in 1848 at Whitehall, New York. As trolling motors become more popular, fishermen could cover more area. Without Buell, there wouldn't be any modern inline spinners, spinnerbaits, or blade baits. So this other company, Eppinger Manufacturing in Dearborn, Michigan, they're most famous for the Daredevil red and white spoon. They have a lure named after Buell. The owner, Karen Eppinger, says she believes that anglers owe a huge debt to Buell and his invention. She proudly points out that while Buell perfected the spoon for trolling from a boat, her company designed the first spoons for casting and retrieving. Eppinger made over 17,000 different lures as far as shapes and sizes go today. There have been many knockoffs over the years. Make sure that you get the original with the devil head logo trademark. There were many knockoffs of this white and red spoon. It's funny because I have one in my uncle's old tackle box, and it doesn't have the logo on it. So later, they added the logo of the devil head to all their spoons because there were about 300 different knockoffs from other fishing lure companies over the years. So they wanted to make sure you were getting a Daredevil spoon, the best quality. Look for one with the Daredevil head on it. Eppinger takes pride in its American-made quality. And I'll tell you, I fish a lot with Castmasters over the years, and Castmasters are not the quality they used to be. They're not made in America anymore like the Eppinger spoons. The Castmasters are now made in China, and I have seen a difference in the quality. The metal, I've had hooks broken off. It's not the same. Hopefully Acme, that makes the Castmaster, turns its ways and starts bringing the manufacturing back to the U.S. because the knockoffs from China and the stuff that's sent over there to be manufactured for these companies that aren't even knockoffs, the quality is just not the same. So make sure you read the packaging. Try to buy stuff made in the U.S. And if not, the Japanese make very good quality lures. So that's just something to keep in mind. And Eppinger, with their Daredevil spoon, that's still made in the USA, and it's good to see. So Eppinger was started by Louis Eppinger in 1912 with his prototype named Osprey, later renamed the Daredevil. The lure came about because Louis wanted a lure that would work well with new bait casting reels. He wanted a lure heavy enough to cast with the newfangled reels. Lures that were too light at the time would not work well with a bait caster. They were made more for trolling. Named after the Devil Dogs, name given by the Germans to the 4th Marine Brigade, which penetrated and captured the Germans in the Battle of Belleau Woods in 1918 during World War II. So the Daredevil spoon, it was actually not spelled like devil because they were getting some pushback in the early days from the church. I thought that was funny that how they had to change the name of the spoon because they were getting some pushback from the church at the time. Also, they do work great on catching bass. A lot of people don't use these spoons anymore, but these Daredevil spoons are great on catching bass. There was this angler that caught in Connecticut, nearby me in the New England area. He had at one time the record for the largemouth bass and the smallmouth bass and another fish too. And all he fished, he always kept it simple. He always fished at night, I believe, and he only fished the Daredevil spoon and jitterbugs and caught all these fish from the same pond. It's just a good fact to hear that they actually do work really good. I heard that facts, I think it's an episode, the Big Bass podcast. I listened to that here and there, and it had an episode called New England's Greatest Fisherman, I think it was called. And that's a little bit about how he used just a spoon and a jitterbug at night and caught all these record fish. So next I'm going to talk about another spoon that is a very good spoon that came out years ago and is still made today. And it's called the Johnson Silver Minnow, and it was started by Lewis Johnson. He was a retired Chicago foundry operator. And in 1920, he used to fish in a lake with his son, and it was very weedy, too heavy for the lures at the time. So as a creative Midwestern person, he set out to create a lure that would not catch the weeds. Again, like Buell, Lewis, he had used a tablespoon to start his prototypes. His years in the foundry experience paid off. He forged a spoon of a special copper and zinc alloy that was thicker in the middle than in the edges. With his weight centered in the middle, it would rock back and forth as it was retrieved, but always kept the convex face down and the hook up. It also had a slight light weed guard on the hook as well. Much of the weedlessness was the way it just simply rided over the weeds, the way it rocked back and forth and flashed reflections down and on both sides. Fish always attacked from the side or below. Another benefit of the rocking motion was that the anglers didn't have to use special swivels to avoid line twist. Line could be tied to the simple soldered wired eye. The rocking motion always helps control the sinking rate after cast. Where other spoons sink tail first, the silver minnow drops horizontal in its rocking motion. Gives the angler ample time to take up the slack of the line after the cast to retrieve it before it has a chance to bury itself in weedy cover. Many strikes happen as the silver minnow hits the water and starts rocking gently towards the bottom. You can add a trailer like an old school pork rind or a soft plastic bait, but it works fine by itself as well. The silver minnow is still made the way it was in 1920 by hand and still plated with real silver. It's one of the best-selling lures of all time, and it's been in continuous production longer than any other lure. I need to get out there and actually try this Johnson silver minnow myself. I've seen them, but I've never actually fished them. It's a neat lure to get out there. They still make them, Johnson silver minnows. They give them a try, throw them out there and see how it works, and they still catch fish. So that's basically the stories and the history of the spoon. So you have the original, the Buell spoon, that was a modern spoon. They had, like we talked about, spoons dated way back, but for stuff we're using nowadays, the Buell prototypes and spoons were basically made more for trolling, and they worked very well. And like I said, Eppinger came along and they made the first cast and retrieve type spoons that be mated well with bait casters, but you can use it on spinning reels as well. And then you got the other type of spoon, the Johnson silver minnow that came around. That was a great weedless spoon, which I don't have that much experience with, but it sounds like an interesting lure that I want to try out. But I know the Eppinger Daredevil works great. Get one of those Eppinger Buell spoons. Give that a try sometime, named after him. So some tips on basically fishing the spoon. You got to pick the right type. You want it for whatever level of water that you're trying to receive. You can have a casting type spoon, a trolling spoon, or a jigging spoon. So depending on the size, the weight, you can catch any type of species of fish with these. So basically you could have a bunker spoon, and they weigh like 7 to 9 ounces. They're huge, like 8 to 9 inch spoons that are trolled for stripers. So you can catch striped bass with those. And then you can get little tiny spoons, like little tiny Castmasters or like a Phoebe spoon. And then you can go out and catch little panfish and white perch, yellow perch. So it's kind of a lure. They all work the same way. You just have to pick the right weight and size, whatever fish you're going after. Basically, you could have a tackle box of just different size spoons and go out and catch any type of fish you want, which is kind of cool. I would say if you're looking at colors, the number one choice on most is you're going to go with the silver. Most of the time, it works best on clear and sunny days. The number two most popular would probably be gold, and they're best on like a stained water or on more cloudy days, dusk or dawn. And then also you can go with a bait fish match color. So you can go with something that looks like a perch, or they have ones that look like little rainbow trouts, or you can go with just a white. You can try to match it to whatever bait fish, the game fish you're going after. They have the different colors. You just go with the basic Daredevil spoon color, the red and white. That works. They also make a yellow with, I think it's like red diamonds on it. That's always been a popular one. A lot of it, I think the color isn't too important with lures. Definitely the flash of the silver on a sunny day is going to attract some fish, or the gold on the more cloudy days. So you could just go out and basically get 3 different colors and you're done there. You don't need too many colors, like where you get more invested in that with like a jigs or worms, where you want to have more than maybe 3 colors. Another tip is if you are going to go out there and troll some spoons, you want to keep the boat around 1.5 to 2 miles per hour. If you go too slow, it's not going to pull it right. If you go too fast, it's just too fast. So, and you want to put out the line. I usually, when I've done it for fishing for trout, we basically put out the line 80 to 100 feet, but there's no correct length. It depends really where you fish and what type of fish that you're fishing for. Some people put them out 300 feet. It comes down to that. But for like trout fishing, throw it out like 80 to 100 feet and just troll around at like 1.5 miles per hour, and you're going to catch some fish with it. You can also catch some smallmouth bass that way too pretty well, and some other type of fish. And another trick, in heavy current, try adding a swivel and retrieve it not too fast or it won't look natural. So in heavy current, add a swivel and just retrieve it slowly so it looks natural. And like I said earlier, you can use these spoons for ice fishing. So I did that years ago, ice fishing up in New Hampshire. I just had a little rattling. I can't remember the type. It had little rattles in it, and it was just a little silver spoon. And I remember I was catching all types of fish with it. If I recall, I was pulling largemouth bass in. I think I got pickerel, perch, and just sitting there at a hole and just jigging it with an ice fishing rod. That will pull them in. It's pretty cool that you can do that with the spoon. And then you can also use them night fishing, which, like we talked about with the guy that had the records from Connecticut, and he just used that because if you have something like a Daredevil spoon, it makes a lot of turbulence in the water, and the fish lateral line picks up those vibrations. They will hit that lure a lot of the times just from the vibration, even if they can't see it too well. If I was going out nowadays, I would try to find a black spoon because black works best for bass being able to see them at night. But obviously, you can use other colors and you'll catch fish too. A story I have is my buddy, one of his good friends, was a counselor or a maintenance guy at a camp when we were younger. And there was a little pond at that camp. And we went out one night. We were over there hanging out with them, and we went out in the canoe one night, casted out silver spoons. I can't remember if they were like a Castmaster or what they were, because this is years ago. It was a full moon night, I remember, because it was bright out there, or close to full moon. And we were catching little bullhead catfish, little tiny ones, like, 16 inches, maybe 14 inches. It was kind of interesting because I never really caught a lot of catfish. If you go out and they're out there, I guess you can throw out these spoons in some moonlight, and I don't know if they pick up on the reflection or if it's just the vibration from the spoon, but little catfish will hit them at night. Never knew that one, but that's a little one if you ever want to try that as well, if you want to go out and catch some little bullheads. Whatever you're trying to catch, if you want to go and try a spoon, it'll work with any type of fish you're trying to catch out there. Just, again, match the size of the spoon to what you want to catch. If you're going to troll, you can pick up a trolling spoon. A lot of casting spoons will work trolling too. Sometimes you might have to add a swivel so you don't get line twists. They're a very simple lure, very easy to use. You basically cast out, let it sink to whatever level you think the fish is. Sometimes they'll hit it on the drop. A lot of times when you get it to that spot in the first couple reels, they'll nail it. I was out fishing for trout not that long ago back. Actually, it was kind of late. I would say it was like early March. And I actually didn't catch any trout that day. I took the kids out. They were fishing with power bait, and I was just casting a silver Castmaster, trying to catch some brown trout or anything. I cast it out, let it sink, and I think on like the first or second turn of the reel, I got blasted. And I was like, this doesn't feel like a trout. I reel it in, and it was like a 3-pound smallmouth. But you can catch good bass on these spoons, and a lot of people don't use it. It comes back to that bass do have a memory. They see a certain lure over and over again that they've been caught on. They're not going to keep on biting that lure. A lot of them don't see spoons, so if you're going out to target bass, try a spoon just to change it up, especially if it's a high pressured water area. Just having that other type of lure that no one else is using, that gives you an advantage. The fish don't recognize it, they don't see it. So try those out, and just keep in mind, like we talked about with the different colors, the weights. I would say, like, if you're going out to catch smaller trout, you go with something that's like a 1/8. If you're going out to catch bass, you want to go maybe like a 1/2 ounce. It really depends. Depends if you're going smallmouth or largemouth. But just kind of match it to the weight of your fishing rod setup can handle. It's a very simple lure to use, and it's fun to catch because you'll just be reeling it and they hit it. That's a fun lure, and it's real easy. You don't really have to worry too hard about the hook set a lot of the times. Like, definitely set the hook. They hit it, and while you're reeling, it gets them in the lip. It's a pretty good, easy way to get some fish. My experience mostly with spoons is mostly trout fishing. I use mainly Castmasters because a lot of times when I'm out trout fishing, I'm going from the bank because it's early in the year, and I'm either going to fish right from the bank or maybe waders, and I'm just trying to cast as far as I can to get to that deeper water and bring it up to the shallow water. The trout at certain times will come up into the shallows, and you'll be nailing them, reeling it back, or you'll get them down in the deeper water if you let it sink down there as well. So they work really well with trout from my experience, and like I said, you can catch any type of fish with it. I've been out saltwater blue and striper fishing and using a oversized spoon for that. So yeah, give them a try. A lot of people don't use them anymore. And this is episode number 5, and we're only getting started. We're going to continue to do great fishing stories and advice and try to give you guys some info that maybe you're not getting elsewhere. And as I enjoy stories of history and entrepreneurship, I like to throw that into these episodes because it's just fun to learn. I always liked history, and I like to throw that in there because you learn a little bit from these people. These are the stories of these people that go out there and invent this product. It's the way America was really created, and we need to keep that going. We need this innovation. If you have an idea for a fishing lure, go out, give it a try. If you got the ability to design something, and try it, give it a try. You might be one of these next guys. There hasn't been too many new fishing lures over the years. The chatterbait's probably the newest thing, and I think that was about 15 years ago now or something. Whoever came up with that idea, I know it was I forget who's the company that makes chatterbaits. But either way, whatever company made it, it was probably a guy there in their R&D department that came up with it. And he probably got a big promotion, I would hope, for coming up with that lure, because it's been a good lure, and it's the only thing new in the last multiple years that I can think of. So if you have any good ideas out there, who knows, you could be the next Buell. You could come up with something new. Keep your mind working. That's why I kind of do this podcast. Just, I enjoy it. It's fun. I like to give people information. I enjoy listening to podcasts myself. That's why I'm doing this. Hope it grows. Hope you guys learn some stuff and listen. We're going to try to do episodes every week or every other week and try to do new stories. And like I said in the past, email me, send you your story, and I'll share it, because we all have stuff we can learn from each other. Enjoy out there, get on the water, get some fishing in, enjoy this nice, getting hot summer weather, and give that night fishing a try. It's good for it right now. Get out there and try throwing a spoon or a popper or a jitterbug. Get out there at night if you can. And be safe out there, everyone. Thanks for listening. Please share, like, and subscribe if you can. That would be great. And you all have a great day. Thank you.